Hi, this is John Wren. This is the Startup Show. And today we're going to talk about the convention of this week past and the convention of the week to come. And how does that show us what's needed in today's world? What are some things we could start to possibly be helpful? We're going to try to share this with presidents of the board of local chambers of commerce across the state and see what they think of our idea and if they'd like to have our help, if they'd be willing to help us, because we think that there is a real need for something that will revitalize the grassroots. Now, the Startup Show is each Friday. It's on YouTube live broadcasts, Google Plus on air, Hangouts, and a link on johnwren.com. So you can also go on YouTube for our John S. Wren station and see past episodes, and we park them various places, but we'll be including a link to this on the email we're going to be sending to Chamber of Commerce elected board presidents and also the executive directors. We want to come at it from two perspectives, the staff side and also from the membership side, because we think there is a real need for what we've been leading up to, and especially based on what happened at this convention this past week with the Republicans and what's coming up, it looks like this next week with the Democrats. But people are becoming disgusted. They think they can't predict what's going to happen. They can't participate and feel like they're going to have input into a system that results in a candidate that they feel good about. Now, the highlight is always on presidential, because that's such an easy story for the national media to cover as compared to local races. But local races, if you really look at it, are much more important because you add them all up, and that really is where the power is in the elected public officials. And local chambers of commerce are in a good position to influence that for good or for bad. And years ago, I think they influenced it for good. There was a set of materials the U.S. Chamber put out, Action Class in Practical Politics, and a lot of people were introduced to the grassroots political participation through that U.S. Chamber materials and their local chamber and others presenting the material in such a way that it motivated them to get involved. And that's been gone for decades now. And what's needed is something to come back and replace it, maybe updated for the 21st century and the internet. You know, I've got some of the old books from that. You can still get them on Amazon. Has used copies. If you go to amazon.com and just Google Action Class and Practical Politics, you'll see them come up. Prices gradually creeping up as they're being bought up around the country. They were, but still you can find them just for a couple of cents sometimes. So you kind of have to watch it. But we're going to be contacting local chambers and saying, hey, why don't we work together? Now, for years, I've said that we cooperate with local chambers, but that's been more lip service than anything else. We want to really start doing it now. And we're going to talk to local chambers on the phone and look for, I'm not sure, maybe we could help 10, 20, 30. There's 160 chambers across the state. I think part of the problem, maybe that's too many chambers of commerce, but 10, 20, 30 strong chambers across the state. And maybe there is a need to cooperate with a very local community. I think they can get rolled up and become too big. Seems to have happened with the Denver Metro Chamber. And, you know, I worked for Dick Olson, who was president of Outdoor Sports. One of my jobs was participating in some of the associations on behalf of outdoor sports, and they were very active members of the Colorado Association of Commerce and Industry, which is sort of the statewide chamber. And that group is still around. They still do a good job representing business interests. But I had always thought of, this was back when Rex Jennings was the head of it, I had always thought of you know, the Denver Chamber of Commerce being important. And my boss just did not like the Denver Chamber, but because I wanted to, we joined it and I participated. And I've been a member of other chambers over the years, but chambers sometimes don't really have a business orientation. And I would have to say, from my perspective, it looks like maybe that's the Denver Metro Chamber now. Now, I could be wrong. I'm going to talk directly to their people. First call I'm going to make Monday is going to be to the Denver Chamber of Commerce, see if I can find an elected member that's president of the board or at least on the board that's interested in, and to try to talk to their top staff person. I don't know. I've posted things online. She may not want to talk with me because they're pushing an initiative, or at least they have been, that I think is just really, really terrible. And, you know, it's not only that they're not helping the grassroots by encouraging participation in the caucus. It appears to me they're really trying to kill the caucus. Now, why am I so for the caucus? And, you know, most of my, we say the Small Business Chamber of Commerce, Inc., part of what we do, which is really part of what I do right now. We're going to try to include more people, but part of the efforts I've been making has been on behalf of the caucus, and I'm now the registered agent for Save the Caucus, cocaucus.org. And, you know, we were able to kill for 2 years in a row legislation in committee that would have killed the caucus. And now they're holding hearings around the state. But the Denver Chamber has been trying to collect signatures for something. Now, hopefully they haven't found enough signatures, because it's kind of a wacky thing. Anyone that knows anything about Colorado politics, if they would take just a minute when they're asked for their signature and read this, they'd say, well, no, that doesn't make any sense. You know, it says sort of that who should elect the president of the Denver Chamber of Commerce is anybody that wants to vote. We all ought to have a vote. Wouldn't that be crazy? Well, that's not their, but they're saying that about the political parties. Anybody that wants to vote for who's going to be in charge of whatever political party, you've got as much right as members of that political party. Now, what do you have to do to join the major political party? You just have to register. I mean, they don't turn people down. So if you really have a sincere interest in helping Democrats or Republicans select good leadership and participate, they are wide open. But if you don't at least do that much, you know, does it really make sense to let you go in and help them pick their candidates? Not really. And that's what the Denver Chamber is pushing for. And it just doesn't make any sense. But I'm going to find out more, and I will be reporting back to you here. This is a focus now for the next couple of weeks, just in the off chance that something does get on the ballot. And also these committee meetings they're having around the state now, collecting information and come back with legislation about how the elections work here in Colorado and what could be done to improve them. Naturally, there are always things that could be done to improve them. So I think it's a great idea. But what I am definitely against, and this is what we've been fighting and we've killed in committee for the last couple of years, what is really not needed is a presidential primary. And a presidential primary is expensive. It's paid for by the taxpayers, not the political parties. Caucus is paid for by the members of the political party. And then it does have a primary election that is paid for by the taxpayers. And yes, everyone can vote in that primary election that registers with the party. If you're unaffiliated, you can do same-day registration. And so what we're encouraging people to do now is become unaffiliated, and then in the primary, just pick Republican or Democrat and vote in that at the election booth. You know, people are just enamored with this idea of getting a mail ballot, but, you know, I always wonder if my vote's really counting when I do that. And plus, it's just going in on election day. I like to wait till the last minute so we have all the information about the candidate, go in the polling place and vote, and you come in contact. It just makes you feel like, you know, a U.S. citizen to do it that way. Mailing in the ballot makes you feel like you're a member of some remote thing that is a million miles away. But we're encouraging people to affiliate unaffiliated. You can do it online, Colorado Secretary of State's website. I'll try and put a link up here that hopefully as I'm saying these words, you'll see the link there, the address. But switch your registration right now to unaffiliated. And people that switch their registration to unaffiliated now or in the last few days, in the next few days, we'll be contacting you, because we're looking for unaffiliated voters, mainly people that know the political process, but are kind of sick of it. You know, Republicans, active Democrats, you know, they see how disorganized both parties are right now. They have state leaders that have just about killed both political parties, with some exceptions. Democrats seem to feel better about their state party leader than the Republicans do. All that may be changing with the Republicans. They just got a lot of publicity at the national convention. But it's really not a matter of personalities. It's a matter of what are they pushing for. And if anyone that's pushing for a presidential primary really either doesn't understand the nature of the Colorado caucus, and you know, a lot of people don't, and that's okay. But if you're a state party chairman, you'd think there'd be some understanding. But either they don't understand, or they're trying to kill the caucus if they press for a presidential primary, because we know the presidential primary kills the caucus here in Colorado, because we've tried it. You know, in 2004, we went back to the caucus system, which has served us so well since 1912. Honest John, Governor Shafroth, his nickname was Honest John. He was really beloved by the people. He pushed through legislation that created the Colorado caucus because he wanted to end the Tammany Hall type politics. Spear, Stapleton, these people were dominating politics in the state. And he saw that the Colorado caucus would give control back to the grassroots. Instead of taking marching orders, the party members would be telling the person at the head of the parade which direction to head. And it's been very, very effective. I've seen it in its heyday when it was operating well, and it's a wonderful thing, but it requires good leadership. And it's been quite a while since, in my opinion, either political party has had consistently good leadership. Now, there have been exceptions to that. And, you know, and again, it's not about personalities. It's about just the facts of how does the grassroots participate. You know, the absolute best chance the average ordinary person has of serving an elected public office themselves, or being useful in helping other good people get elected, is our Colorado caucus. So we're going to be contacting local chambers of commerce to try to get the word out about this in something that might be a bit like that action class in practical politics. And if you'd like to help in this effort, or if you're with a local chamber and you want us to call you first on Monday, give us a call. My name's John Wren, Small Business Chamber of Commerce, Inc. Our number 303-861-1447. And we've got a website, smallbizchamber.org, SMALLBIZ chamber.org, smallbizchamber.org. So call if you'd like to be part of this effort. We're also going to have a group that meets here on a regular basis to guide this effort. And, you know, our startup method, we're going to apply to this particular situation. Our method is outlined in several different places. We're revising the little book that I've written in the past, Daring Mighty Things, Simplest Way to Start Your First or Next New Business. We're going to morph that into our Small Business Chamber handbook. And we're going to take what's there now, which are the phases of startup, which is decide, prepare, start, and grow. Those will stay just like they are in the little book, but we're going to add to it now our startup method. Because to do that start, there really are practices that are required. Practice of recovery, getting back up on our feet after we've been knocked down. And nearly everything that's good has started by being knocked down. Something good almost always is preceded by something bad. And you have to recover from that, get back up on your feet. So the practice of recovery, practice of imagination, you know, now it's not true that the imagination causes things to happen, but nothing ever happens that's not first someone's idea. And we're kind of creators with God. It's not just us creating, it's this inspiration that people get. And it's not like chemistry or physics. This is not something that can be reduced to formulas. Graduate business schools especially have given us that impression, but businesses just don't start the way that graduate business school tries to teach. It's just like poetry. You don't become a good poet by going and getting a graduate degree in poetry. Sometimes people do, sometimes they do, but the poet generally becomes a good poet by writing poetry. And the person that is skilled in startup generally develops that skill by starting. And it raises the bar, but it also lowers the bar, because most successful businesses just don't do what we're taught to do in graduate business school before their first sale. Eventually they do. They tidy up because bankers, investors, others need to understand their thinking in more detail and the results in more detail. So those standard tools, but in the very beginning, there's usually an idea, some sort of a bump, it won't go forward, and somebody goes out in anger or in joy, one way or the other, they strike out on their own, and that's where the successful businesses come from. Now, if there aren't a lot of failures, it's not really capitalism. The capitalism is different than a planned economy. If careful market research and careful planning worked, we'd have a planned economy, not a market economy. But for 230 years, this country has grown because we have a market economy. Someone gets an idea, they go out and try it, they get underway, they grow. But that practice of recovery, of imagine and then think, we imagine it, but then we need to sit down and think hard. I think before anyone spends a significant amount of time or money on their new business, it's a real good idea to sit down with a good CPA. And a good CPA won't tell you if it's a good idea or not, but they will help you see the financial implications and help keep you legal. Sometimes you do need to get together with an attorney. And then learn. Some people think the best form of adult learning is to start a business, because you learn all kinds of things. But you learn more I believe, if you're part of a self-directed learning group. A self-directed learning group, everyone is out doing whatever it is they do to learn. They could be taking a class, they could be starting a business, they could be reading, maybe they're an autodidact, but coming together on a regular basis with others who are learning. Now, a lot of that used to happen naturally. There'd be these great, good places. It might be the barber shop, a coffee shop, just places where people would come together. Abe's Cafe out in Littleton used to be that way. About 10:30 or so, all the merchants from around Abe's would come together and sit down at the round table and talk about what was going on. It wasn't just strictly BS. And these naturally occurring great, good places, though, they're sort of vanished. And so to learn, it's a good idea to put together some sort of a learning group. Now, there are expensive brands of that. Vistage, Tab, they're independent efforts where people charge a lot, but you can do it yourself. And if you want to see what we think about putting together your own self-directed learning group, just Google Franklin Circle. Google Franklin, how to start a Franklin Circle. And you'll see pretty much what we know now. It keeps getting changed. It's a wiki. So like the pictures I have nothing to do with. I think they're, maybe those pictures should have women in them. I don't think they do. It's just a couple of guys. And, it's not perfect, but it'll give you an idea. And you can read that and just go start your own learning group, or call us, we'll help you. But that's one of the things we're trying to foster. So for these practices, for recovery, we have a meeting called Root and Branch. We do a model meeting every Monday at 4:30. Root and Branch looks at two things. One, 12-step recovery, which can be applied to any problem. It came out of one particular problem, but now it's been generalized, and there's formal programs for about 150 different problems: overeating, emotional difficulties, you name it. Now, there are, maybe your particular problem doesn't have a 12-step program, but that doesn't mean you can't apply the 12 steps to it. So Root and Branch looks at 12 steps, and applies it to particular problems or sends people in the right direction to get the help that they need. And the other thing we do is talk about meditation. It's such a powerful tool. It can change your life. It's just very powerful. This is documented. There's 3 approaches to meditation. One is just totally secular. The relaxation response by a medical doctor, Benson. Dr. Benson wrote the relaxation response, and I think you get the same physiological effect from that. Now, there may be some spiritual benefits from looking at some of the other forms of meditation. We have a very, very simple sort of takeoff of what Dr. Benson talks about, and then we have 5 minutes to try meditation. And most of the people that come to the meeting have never tried meditation. And then we send them on to other places where they can find out more. But it's not meant to be necessarily something that people come to every week, but it's open to anyone that's interested in a spiritual way of living, and we share and then go out and live our lives. It's 1 hour a week, and this model group we're doing right now is at 1311 York Street on the 3rd floor each Monday at 4:30. Now for Imagine, we've got the Idea Cafe Startup Workshop. I've been doing this for decades, and it's a powerful format where we just very simply share startup experience, what we've actually done, and a brainstorming type technique. And again, now it's Friday afternoon here in Denver at 4:30. And I say it's for people who have reached the end of the week and they're not sure what they're going to do Monday morning. Now, maybe they got fired. They're just really at their wits' end. They unexpectedly lost the job, and now they have to figure out what's next. Or maybe they've had a bright idea and they want to go out on their own. But if you want to start, or you just want to start a new career, get out of doing one type of work into another, because that is really a startup. The difference is really just the financing. But I encourage you to come and take a look at the Idea Cafe Startup Workshop. We do a model group every Friday at 4:30, Lodo Panera Bread. Learning is the Franklin Circle, and we're always forming new groups. So if you'd like to be in a group that we've formed, give me a call and we'll get you into the next one. And then the other practice, I guess that's it. Recovery, imagine, think, and learn. And as you get better and better at those, you become better and better at starting, growing, flourishing. And Martin Seligman's got a book called Flourishing. Martin Seligman, founder of positive psychology, and it's a great book. And but it's not exactly a practice. This is just showing you, if you do these other things, kind of what happens in my mind. It's an observation of people. It's not really a prescription for how do you get there. Now, there is a new book from one of Seligman's students, Angela Duckworth, has written this new book called Grit, and it much more is oriented towards how do you get the grittiness part of his PERMA, which that's not the whole thing, but it gets you to part of it. And we share, there's so much that comes out. People come in and they bring things, and, I learn every week. We get together at these various meetings. Now, it may be just one of the meetings appeals to you. It may be that you need it at a different time or place. Call us and we'll try to help get a meeting started at a time or place that would work better for you. And we want to take this to local chambers now. The idea of these action classes and practical politics melded into maybe these 4 groups, so that these 4 groups fit as far as the business side of people's lives. But why not use the same thing and a little bit of intentionality to reach out to people that want to get more involved in grassroots politics? They want to serve an elected public office themselves or help other good people get elected. And these groups, coming to them, can help with that if that's what you want. Well, this afternoon, 4:30, we'll be at the Lodo Panera Bread, 16th and Market. And come down and give it a try. If you want a double header today at 6 o'clock at the same place, Lodo Panera Bread, there's a Socrates Cafe. Socrates Cafe is also tomorrow, Saturday, at the University of Denver in the Anderson Academic Commons, old Penrose Library. We're over in the current periodicals. The library is pretty much empty except for us on Saturday night. The students generally have something better to do with their time. I mean, there are people there, but not so much that you can't have a meeting right in the current periodicals, and they have the more comfortable chairs there, and it's very accessible. So Saturday nights at 6:30 there at the University of Denver. Well, that's the startup show for this week. Next week, we're going to get back to having guests on to talk about how they actually got started. I've been doing this for 20 years. People always want to kind of keep back what the real story is, and it's hard to get them to really share when they feel like they're being broadcast to the world. But I'm going to give it another try and see if we can make it work now that it's a slightly more intimate thing than going into a radio studio. And if you've started something and you'd like to share your experience of how it actually started, I'd love to have you on the show. I interview you right from in front of your own computer in your own home or office. And we use Google Plus Hangouts. And if you've got a Gmail account, you're using Google Plus, we can connect up right away. And I encourage you to take a look at them. Those are powerful tools. And we're going to stick with it for a while. You never know what the future holds, but I think they're doing a great job, and it's a free service. So since we're no dues or fees, it's hard to make much money unless you keep your expenses very, very low. And that may change soon. We're going to be, I think, hiring some ambassadors to sell memberships. But we expect to always be sort of a virtual group, sort of like the ARP, the American Retired People's Association. And, our world headquarters is my apartment. This kitchen is our studio right now. And I'd love to have you in front of your computer, and let's talk about how you got started. If you'd like to do that with us, give me a call, 303-861-1447. Small Business Chamber of Commerce. We'd like to help you do more good work. And remember, I remind myself of this every week, and also you, this life is very short. So let's go get started. Thanks for watching.